Hi or welcome back. Today we're going to discuss 3 traditional benefits of Echinacea. And the first one you've probably heard of as it's pretty common, but the other 2 you might not have, but in my opinion they're equally as important. Welcome to MrsCrunchy, where we discuss natural living in a modern world. Echinacea is a show-stopping, usually pink or purple flower, although there are hybrids called purple coneflower, so you might see different colors of it. But for today's video, this is important, we're actually referring to either Echinacea angustifolia or Echinacea purpurea. Echinacea angustifolia, to me, it's not as showy. The petals tend to be like more of a light pink color as opposed to that vibrant purple color that you get with Echinacea purpurea. I am only familiar with growing Echinacea purpurea personally, so I cannot attest to this, but some people do say that Echinacea angustifolia is more difficult to grow. And as far as the medicinal properties, they are both used for their medicinal qualities. And again, because we don't know as much about the hybrids and what the medicinal properties of those are, I would stick to these 2 types of varieties. As far as which one is more medicinal, it's really going to depend, because some people say that angustifolia offers the most medicinal benefits. But I've also read in certain books that the purpurea offers more like antiviral qualities. So they both, though, offer medicinal qualities, and that's something that I see across the board. The blooms come up during the summer, so it's something really fun to see right in the middle of your harvest season. So let's talk about the first traditional benefit of Echinacea. It is a tremendous supporter of your immune system. So think about when you're at the grocery store and you see those boxes of cold care tea and there's pictures of the Echinacea flower on there. It's very well known in this realm for treating colds and flus, even though they are quite different. But this is sort of leading to the greater point, which is that Echinacea is a very versatile flower and it is going to work with whatever it's paired with. So it helps the body increase its own resistance to things like infections and inflammation. More on that later. But it really helps its body boost its own immune system. It's known as something called an immunomodulator, which if you've seen my video on shiitake mushrooms, for example, there are other things like medicinal mushrooms that also modulate your immune system. This is also a good time to bring up the fact that immunomodulators can work in either direction. They can stimulate your immune system, which is what we're talking about mostly with Echinacea today, but it also brings up the fact that some immunomodulators actually work to suppress the immune system. And you might think, well, why would anyone want something like that? Well, there are certain things like rheumatoid arthritis or some types of cancer where they are trying to suppress the immune system. So as always, a caveat, this is not a broad recommendation for Echinacea. I am not a medical provider, so please do your own research and work with your trusted healthcare provider on whether or not taking Echinacea is appropriate for you. There's mixed reviews as far as whether or not it's safe for women that are breastfeeding or pregnant. Some say it's safe, some people say there's not enough research, so again, that's going to be a personal decision. Anyway, back to immune support. First of all, they say that you should start taking it as soon as you feel those symptoms coming on. So I have also seen the general recommendation is that you take Echinacea when you have these acute symptoms or when you feel it first coming on, but it's not something that you would take every day, for example. And the general recommendation is to take it in a tincture. So a tincture, for those of you who don't know, is a very concentrated form of, in this case, we're using Echinacea. So for example, I have my Echinacea tincture here, and I actually had to use this recently. We did some traveling during the holiday season, and inevitably we all just came down with a little something. So this is mine, and this is tinctured in vodka, so I always write what it's tinctured in on the bottle and the date that I made it. So if it's done in alcohol in a dark bottle like this, cool dry location and in a dark bottle, it should in theory last forever. I do feel that when I take this tincture, it will shorten the duration and the severity of like a flu or cold if I'm getting that. And I just take a little bit, maybe like a quarter to a half teaspoon every few hours. Again, you'll have to do what's right for you, but I'm seeing, again, the general rule of thumb is that you should take small doses, but relatively frequently. So every 2 to 3 hours when you first feel like you're coming down with something. So that is how many people recommend taking it when you're trying to treat a flu or a cold. Now, when you go to make your Echinacea tincture, it's said that most of the medicinal power of the plant is actually located in the roots. However, there is some in the flowers as well. For example, some people say flowers actually offer more benefits for your lymphatic system, which Echinacea is known for boosting as well, kind of clearing out some of the junk that accumulates in your lymphatic system. So when you go to make your tincture, Rosemary Gladstar, again, who I constantly refer to, but she recommends making a tincture out of the entire plant. When I made mine, I even included some of the leaves, even though they say the leaves don't include much, but I figured why not, can't hurt. And so I went and I chopped up all the flowers and the leaves during the summer. I put mostly flowers in there, and that spiny center is actually pretty difficult to chop up, I learned. And with the roots, you want to wait actually until the fall, after the plant has received all of its power from the growing season. And another thing too is if you're trying to establish Echinacea somewhere, you might want to wait until at least year 2 or possibly year 3 before you go harvesting the roots, because otherwise it will be difficult for the plant to come back. So that's something to be aware of. But you can harvest the plant during different times of the year, and yes, you'll have to be patient in that you'll have to wait to make your tincture until after you have all the parts that you want to use. But then in the fall, after you harvest and dry the roots, then you can use your dried flowers, and if you want add some of the dried leaves too, you can, and then you can make a tincture out of the whole plant. Echinacea is much more than that. Like I mentioned, it's very versatile. So I'm going to use this opportunity to lead us into our second traditional benefit of Echinacea, which is that it's great for soothing inflammation and irritation. So again, Echinacea is effective in whatever it's paired with. So for example, a traditional use of Echinacea is they would pair it with myrrh. So think of the 3 wise men, that myrrh, and they would use it as a gargle for sore throats. And it also is great for treating things like boils, infections of the skin, skin ulcers. Sometimes people make Echinacea into salves, which can be great. Is that salves are medicinal preparations of herbs that contain usually 3 elements: the herb itself, a wax, I use beeswax a lot, and a fat, so whether that's a plant or animal fat. And the wax is effective in sealing it. So if you already have an infection, you kind of want to avoid putting a salve on it because it won't help the infection breathe. It's just going to seal the infection in there, and it could potentially make it worse. So I just wanted to add that point to it. Echinacea is also well known for treating infections or irritations of the throat and the lungs, things like bronchitis. It doesn't suppress the symptoms, but again, it really enhances the body's ability to fight these symptoms off and to fight the infection or irritation. Echinacea gets its name from the Latin word echinus, which means sea urchin. And if you've ever seen or felt the center of that flower, you will very much understand why. And in ancient Greek, that word can either mean hedgehog or sea urchin, both of which are fitting. And the third benefit of Echinacea is it's very effective in treating bites and stings. So things like spider bites or snake bites, things where there's actual venom. And they say the most effective way to treat these stings is to take a tincture of Echinacea when you get stung, but also to use it as a poultice. So poultice is, they would usually like grind it up and you'd put it onto your skin. So there's no like wax or oils involved like a salve, but that way you would take it both internally and externally. And that's what I see recommended when treating bites and stings. Now this brings up a really good question, and a question that I see a lot when we're talking about herbalism is people are very skeptical about herbalism in general, and they do bring up a good point, because there are some things where we have used these for centuries and known about them since the ancient Egyptians or the ancient Greeks, and sometimes this means that it's a tried and true healing solution. But also sometimes there has been a lot of time and a lot of developments and science and technology that has occurred since then. So we still have to always question, is this the best option? And I'm going to circle back, I promise. But what I'm getting at here is that if you get a venomous bite or a sting, you still want to go to the hospital to receive treatment, because that's going to be the best option for you, and something like that is really, really serious. So I am not implying in any way that echinacea should be your sole solution for something like that. It's more like, if you happen to be out hiking or something, maybe if it's okay with you and your medical provider, take a small bottle of echinacea tincture with you, or some echinacea powder, so if you get stung, you can take those things on your way to the emergency room. So those are the 3 traditional benefits of echinacea, and you can see why it is so versatile, and it's also very unique in its qualities because it has these energetic properties of being both cooling, drying, and stimulating, which is unique because a lot of times things that stimulate the body have very hot qualities. So things like ginger or cayenne, things that we put in fire cider, those things are just, yeah, they have a pungent, which echinacea is pungent, but like I said, they tend to be very warming to the body. This is cooling, so again, nature, is it any wonder that the echinacea flower blooms during the summer? So it's unique in that way. Thank you as always for joining today. Again, thank you for all of the comments. I read each and every one, and you all have said some really nice things. So I do appreciate the words of encouragement, and I'm glad to see your wisdom coming out in the comments. So it's all very valuable and appreciated. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you all again soon.